I am most surprised that your team, who has a quarterback on a rookie deal, who you look at their roster, it is the one spot that it's like, man, how are they going to get a consistent pass rush? You had to have Caleb pull so many rabbits out of his hat in the playoff, in part because they weren't able to get a consistent pass rush. Are you surprised Chicago isn't the team we're talking about here?
They don't have a young edge rusher to fill in the Jared Verse spot. And so if we say that Verse is worth 2 first-round picks, I just don't think Ryan Poles is ready to trade 5 draft picks, including 3 firsts, for Myles Garrett. But I know they were interested in Max Crosby before the failed physical. I know they had edge rushers on their board that they were hoping were falling to them in the draft that they weren't able to get in the draft. So they're an NFC team, which maybe Cleveland would have been interested in dealing with them. So I definitely think the Bears had this conversation, but I don't think by most of the reporting, Albert Breer posted a piece right before we came on the air, that the Rams really did not want to give up Jared Verse. They wanted to make this just a draft pick trade, and the Browns were adamant that a young, cost-controlled player needed to be included in the deal, and the Bears just don't have that at edge rusher. So if that was the Browns' sticking point, there's just so few teams in the league that meet this point.
You know, good.
That's assuming Breer's reporting.
It's literally the Rams. It's literally the Rams in terms of a team that Myles Garrett again
would want to
go to that has a comp that then you can make this trade.
The Eagles are not going to trade Jalen Carter.
No.
You know, in this spot, it's a very small list if premium young edge rushers.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Not only do they lack that capital, but even if they were open to moving all those draft picks, I think there's often some misunderstanding around the whole rookie quarterback contract and the idea of pushing all your chips in. And it's something I genuinely want to break down because I feel like we sometimes miss the bigger picture. But before we dive into that, Chicago Bears fans, please, please, please don't forget to subscribe and watch the full video. When you all do that, the view counts go through the roof, subscriber numbers go through the roof, and it's not about chasing metrics. It's about being able to create Chicago Bears content that people genuinely want to watch and talk about. So we can keep having the most unbiased, level-headed conversations about the Chicago Bears. It really makes a huge difference, and I'd really, really appreciate it. So, here's the deal. Yes, you want to take big swings, and you're willing to spend a lot of money right now on players when you have a quarterback on a rookie contract. The problem is that if you give up all this draft capital, that's precisely the capital you need to fill out your roster when it's time to pay Caleb Williams an astronomical amount. I mean, when that time comes, what are we looking at? $70 million a year? Everything just keeps climbing. It's going to be like 70-something. You know, deep 60s, it's going to be a massive sum, and you're going to want that 2027 first-round pick. In this scenario, it would be at least the 2027 first-rounder and the 2028 first-rounder, right? You need those selections. You need those picks. Those are the players who are going to complete your roster, and honestly, not just fill it out, but become major impact contributors. You need them to pan out. Otherwise, then you're in trouble. So this whole notion of, you just have to go all in when you have a young quarterback because you'll have to pay him eventually, and it'll be difficult, and so on, especially in free agency, especially if you're making a trade that's, let's make it really simple. Let's say Myles Garrett was traded for just a first-round pick, and you're going to have to pay him again. Let's use round numbers, $200 million. Okay, that's fine because now you're paying for Myles Garrett right now, and you're only giving up, say, next year's first-rounder. By the time you need to pay Caleb Williams, Myles Garrett's contract will eventually be winding down. Combined with what we have, sure, we don't have a first-round pick in 2027, but we do in 2028 and 2029. So it still kind of staggers things in a way where you can say, sure, we can afford not to need young, cheap talent right now in 2026 and 2027. So we can pay for veteran talent now, and we can trade a draft pick to a team that's essentially selling off assets. In that way, it makes a lot of sense, almost like what the Denver Broncos did with Bo Nix, or with Jalen Waddle. Exactly, because again, at this point you're getting a bit deeper into these rookie contracts. It's obviously not the first year or even the second year now. You're in the third year, and depending on when you officially want to extend and how you want to operate with void years and signing bonuses, all that starts to get pretty complicated and unpredictable. But the whole idea that you can just trade away all this capital, because if we're really going to say that Jared Verse is worth 2 firsts, then you'd be giving up 3 firsts. Like, 3 first-round picks you'd be surrendering. And I don't know, man, that just really ends up hurting you. You're going to pay Caleb Williams a fortune, and you're going to be out of first-round picks. And even a first-round pick next year is still extremely valuable because when you have to pay him, everything starts to get staggered. So it genuinely hurts you. So, yeah. I mean, I think you can use those picks sometimes for immediate impact players. That's why I tried to make the very simple example of just trading 1 pick for Myles Garrett that you then have to pay right now, right? Which is essentially a step up from free agency, but you actually do have to give up the capital. And then also obviously spending in actual free agency, taking a chance on a Devontae Adams or a Saquon Barkley, because technically those were seen as risks, and you could say, okay, we have money to spend. We can take some chances because we have a rookie quarterback. In that type of situation, sure. But I really do think it was just a perfect situation for the Rams. They talked about the Eagles before, and Brew talked about the Ravens. You know, the Ravens definitely would have been interesting, but considering the moves they had already made, I don't know if that really matters. Maybe if you're talking about pre-draft, then I could understand. Again, another interesting team would have been the Cincinnati Bengals, who they're obviously not going to trade with. I shouldn't say obviously, but I don't think they would, and that's the same thing with the Ravens as well. So, I don't know. Probably makes the most sense for Cleveland, but I just think at the end of the day, the Cleveland Browns actually got such an amazing deal that maybe you could say, hey, 3 first-round picks in 2027, 2028, and 2029 would be pretty awesome for the Cleveland Browns. And any team would be excited, would be ecstatic for that, especially considering they're rebuilding, and it sets them up to really ensure they finally get their quarterback of the future. But I just don't see why the Bears would do that at this moment. It just wouldn't make sense. You do have Caleb Williams. You are trying to build this team. You do have an elite roster from my viewpoint. You need to round it out, and you're going to give up all your first-round picks? No, man. It's one thing if you were going to use those first-round picks. And again, 1 pick for Jared Verse versus O. Any pick for A.J. Brown, 1 pick right now. Again, you're paying all that money right now, but then you truly are putting yourself in the ultimate position to win immediately, win now, win right away. And then when it's time to pay Caleb, all those other players' contracts will be off the books, they'll be done, you'll cut them, trade them, let them walk, whatever. And then yeah, maybe you struggle for a couple of years, but then you'd be back in a decent situation. And all of that for just 1 player? No, man. I just think that ends up hurting you way more than it helps you. But you know, that's also the position the Rams are in right now. They can take these swings. They already have such a great foundation. They have the experience. They have the coaching. They have the capital that they keep burning through, obviously, but they're looking at this on the shortest of all windows right now, a 1 to 2 year window. Let's go. And it just makes the most sense for them right now. So, yeah. This is a fascinating move that everyone, I think most people are just excited about the movement in general, about the trade itself. But when you try to think of all these other teams that could have done it or should have done it, it's a steep price. It's a very, very steep price. I'm trying to think realistically, what other team could have done this that I would have said, that was amazing. This is so great. I feel like the only other team would be the Buffalo Bills. Because I already said no to the Eagles. I obviously just said no to the Chicago Bears. I mean, it would maybe be interesting for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, I'm not trying to overthink the actual compensation itself, but the Seahawks would maybe be kind of interesting to try to take their defense to the next level and really reinforce, hey, we're going to win another Super Bowl. I think that would have been interesting. Not the Chiefs, that's not where they are. Chargers would have maybe been interesting. And I guess the Broncos would have been interesting. But I don't know. I feel like I start to reach on some of these moves. Yeah, I just know that the Chicago Bears would have been at the bottom of my list. So I'm surprised that Nick was like, I'm surprised they didn't do it. Nick specifically said the Eagles and the Bears were the 2 teams that surprised him that they didn't make the move. And honestly, those two are the two teams that would be at the bottom of my list to make that move. I would say the Rams, obviously, since it just worked and it makes a lot of sense for them. And then my gut tells me, if I had to pick right now, I'd lean more towards, and again, realistically, since I'm not really factoring in the Ravens or the Bengals, I think maybe the Bills and the Broncos would probably make the most sense. And then again, the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe the 49ers even, but I don't know. I'd have to think about it longer. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you all think about the idea that the Chicago Bears missed out on Myles Garrett, especially with Caleb Williams on a rookie deal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or disagree, either way, let's get into some discussions. Get into some debates. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you be part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.